Welcome to the Deep Dive, listeners.
Oh.
Today we're going beyond those usual sugar villains,
Mm-hmm.
We're going deep into a hidden carb that's often overlooked. Starch.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of lurking everywhere
I see it everywhere.
in bread and pasta, even in those snacks that, try to disguise themselves as healthy.
Healthy, exactly.
It's almost like a wolf in sheep's clothing, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
I mean, we're all so diligent these days about scanning those labels for sugar.
Absolutely.
But starch, which basically turns into sugar in our bodies,
Right.
it just slips under the radar.
It really does.
It's like a secret agent of sweetness, almost. But why should we be concerned about starch, especially as we get older? I mean, is it really that big of a deal?
Well, think about it this way. Every time you eat something starchy, it's like sending this rapid response team of glucose molecules, right?
Wow, okay, that's a powerful image.
Straight into your bloodstream.
So those innocent-looking bowls of pasta or bags of chips are actually triggering these internal sugar surges.
Precisely.
Okay.
And the more processed the starch is, think white bread versus a bowl of lentils, for example,
Oh, okay.
the faster and more intense those surges become. And this is really where things can start to get tricky, especially for long-term health.
So it's not just about that immediate sugar rush. It's the cumulative effect over time.
Exactly. Imagine your body constantly having to play catch-up, right?
Okay, yeah.
Trying to regulate these sugar spikes. Over time, that can lead to some, well, unwelcome consequences,
Unwelcome, such as
particularly the accumulation of visceral fat.
visceral fat. That sounds a bit more serious than just a few extra pounds.
It is. You see, unlike subcutaneous fat, which sits just beneath the skin, visceral fat, it wraps around your internal organs,
Oh.
like a ticking time bomb inside. It increases the risk of, well, some serious conditions,
Not just
like heart disease and type 2 diabetes.
wow, that definitely elevates the stakes.
Yeah.
Are there any studies that confirm this link between starch consumption and visceral fat?
There was a compelling study in the New England Journal of Medicine.
Okay.
They followed individuals who consumed a diet high in ultra-processed foods, which are often packed with, you guessed it, modified starches.
Okay.
And the results were, well, striking. They experienced a significantly higher blood glucose levels and were more prone to developing insulin resistance.
Insulin resistance, that's a term we hear so much.
Yes,
But could you break it down for us? I mean, it sounds a bit technical.
absolutely. Imagine your cells have these tiny doorways, right,
Tiny doorways.
for glucose to enter. Insulin acts as the key, unlocking these doors, allowing glucose to flow in, be used for energy.
Okay.
Now, insulin resistance, it's like those doors getting jammed,
Mm.
making it harder for glucose to enter.
So it's stuck.
It forces sugar to build up in your bloodstream, and that puts you at a much higher risk for developing type 2 diabetes.
So those sugar spikes from starch aren't just fleeting events. They can actually start to rewire how our bodies process glucose.
Exactly, and it's this chronic disruption that can lead to those long-term health issues we talked about earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, you might be wondering about fiber.
Mhm.
After all, both starch and fiber are types of carbohydrates.
Yes.
But our bodies, well, they react to them very differently.
It's been puzzling me, yeah. They're both made of glucose,
Yes.
but fiber is celebrated, like a health hero.
Uh-huh.
But starch seems to have this shady reputation.
A bit of a bad rap.
So what's the deal with that?
It all comes down to the molecular structure. Fiber has this complex, tightly woven structure that our bodies can't break down. Think of it as a sturdy, intricate tapestry, right? It passes through our digestive system, mostly intact, acting like a helpful scrubber along the way.
A scrubber, okay.
Starch, on the other hand, it's more like a loosely woven fabric. It easily unravels and releases those glucose molecules right into the bloodstream.
So it's not just the presence of glucose, it's how it's packaged that determines its impact on our bodies. This really highlights the importance of looking beyond simple labels like carbs and understanding the nuances of the different types.
Absolutely. And this brings us to another interesting point: the sugar-free deception.
Okay.
You often see products boasting sugar-free on their labels, but they might be loaded with starch.
Wait, so they're technically telling the truth, but not the whole truth. That feels a bit sneaky.
It is. They're relying on the fact that most people just focus solely on added sugar, not realizing that starch can have a very similar effect on blood sugar levels.
Can you give us an example of this? I'm starting to get a little suspicious of my sugar-free yogurt.
Take modified cornstarch, for example. It's often used as a thickener in processed foods and labeled as sugar-free. However, once it hits your digestive system, It rapidly converts into glucose, sending your blood sugar on that familiar roller coaster ride.
So we're being tricked by clever wording. Are there any studies that show this link between high starch intake and these negative health effects?
Research has shown that regularly consuming these high-starch diets can lead to elevated glucose and insulin levels.
Okay.
This not only sets the stage for weight gain and those dreaded sugar cravings,
Yes.
but also puts you on a path toward more serious health problems down the line.
It's like a domino effect,
Exactly.
starting with those seemingly innocent starchy snacks
Yeah.
and leading to a cascade of metabolic disruptions. This is definitely making me rethink my snack choices.
And to further illustrate that visceral fat connection, think of it this way. When you consume more sugar than your liver and muscles can immediately use, your body, in its clever way, stores this excess energy as fat. And guess where it loves to deposit it?
Where?
Right around your vital organs, contributing to that sugar belly. And that's more than just a cosmetic concern.
So that sugar belly is actually a warning sign that our bodies are struggling to cope with all the sugar we're throwing at them, whether it's from, candy bars or that extra serving of pasta.
Precisely. It's a visible reminder that there's a lot happening beneath the surface. And it's a sign that, well, we might need to reassess our relationship with starch, especially as we age.
This is all pretty eye-opening, but don't worry, listeners, we're not leaving you stranded in a sea of starch anxiety. We'll be right back after a short break to discuss practical strategies for managing your starch intake and making healthier choices. So stay tuned. So we've been exploring this hidden world of starch and, how it can impact our health, especially as we age. But knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely.
So now, I guess we're going to equip you, our listeners, with some practical tools to actually manage your starch intake. And it's not about deprivation, right?
Not at all.
It's about making these informed choices.
Right. Exactly. One of the most empowering things you can do is become a label detective. So don't just glance at that sugar-free claim.
Yeah.
Turn that package around and scrutinize the ingredient list. Look for those hidden starches, especially those sneaky modified varieties we talked about earlier.
So we're channeling our inner Sherlock Holmes, looking for those clues in the fine print.
Precisely. And remember, even those healthy starches, right? The ones you find in whole grains and legumes,
Right.
they need to be enjoyed in moderation. It's all about portion control.
Portion control.
Think of your plate as a pie chart. Aim for half of it to be filled with those non-starchy vegetables, a quarter with lean protein, and then that remaining quarter, well, that's for your starch of choice.
I love that visual. It's such a simple way to remember how to build balanced meals without feeling like you're restricted. It's not about eliminating starch altogether. It's about incorporating it, thoughtfully.
Precisely. And here's a fascinating tip. Did you know that the order in which you eat your food can also impact your blood sugar response?
Wait, really? So how I arrange my food on my plate matters.
Research suggests that consuming protein and fiber-rich vegetables before your starchy foods can actually help slow down that glucose absorption.
Interesting.
It's like creating a buffer in your system, leading to a gentler rise in blood sugar.
So starting with a salad or some grilled chicken before diving into the pasta could make a real difference in how my body handles those carbs.
Exactly. It's a simple adjustment that can have a significant impact on your metabolic health. You're you're using food synergy to your advantage.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. It's not just about the individual ingredients.
Yeah.
It's about how they interact within a meal. Now, I know we can't talk about healthy habits without mentioning exercise.
Of course.
So how does physical activity fit into this equation?
Well, exercise is like your secret weapon when it comes to managing that starch intake. When you engage in physical activity, your muscles, they tap into glucose for energy, helping to clear it from the bloodstream and prevent those sugar spikes that we've been discussing.
So it's like exercise is helping our bodies use those glucose molecules more efficiently.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be these intense workouts. Even moderate activity like a brisk walk, dancing, or gardening can make a real difference. Find something you enjoy and make it a regular part of your routine.
That is encouraging news. It means we can find ways to move our bodies that feel good and that fit into our lifestyles. We've covered a lot of practical tips, decoding labels, portion control, strategic food combinations, the power of exercise. But before we move on, is there anything else we should keep in mind as we navigate this complex world of carbohydrates?
Yes, and it's a crucial point. Everyone's body is unique. What works for one person might not work for another. This is where those personalized approaches really come into play.
So while these guidelines provide a great foundation, it's important to, I guess, tune into our own bodies and adjust accordingly.
Exactly. Pay attention to how different foods make you feel. Notice your energy levels after meals, any digestive discomforts or even shifts in mood. Your body is constantly giving you feedback.
This is where that concept of mindful eating becomes so powerful.
Yes.
It's about more than just what's on your plate. It's about bringing awareness to how you eat and how your body responds.
I couldn't agree more. Cultivating this awareness can empower you to make choices that truly support your individual needs and goals.
This has been an incredibly insightful journey into the often overlooked world of starch. We've uncovered its hidden impacts, explored practical strategies for managing its intake, and emphasized the importance of personalized approaches. But there's one last question lingering in my mind. As we become more discerning about the starches we consume, is there anything else we should be on the lookout for on those tricky food labels?
That's a great question, and it leads us to a topic that often goes hand in hand with starch.
Yeah.
Added sugars.
Ah, yes, those added sugars.
Sneaky culprits.
Sneaky culprits that can lurk in even the most unsuspecting places.
Exactly.
We've been so laser focused on starch.
Yes.
But added sugars also play a major role in those blood sugar spikes and long-term health concerns that we've been talking about.
Absolutely. So as you become more starch savvy, I encourage you to widen your scope to include those added sugars as well. Look out for terms like corn syrup, dextrose, and fructose on ingredient lists. And remember, even naturally sweet foods like fruit, well, they need to be enjoyed in moderation.
It seems like we've uncovered a whole new layer of complexity.
We have.
But this knowledge is empowering,
It is.
The more we understand, the better choices we can make. Welcome back to our deep dive into starch. We've uncovered its hidden impacts, explored those practical strategies for managing it, and really emphasized how important those personalized approaches are. But I want to circle back to something you said earlier about personalized approaches to starch management.
Right.
I mean, that's where the real magic happens, isn't it?
It is.
Because, while general guidelines are great, our individual responses to starch can vary.
Oh, absolutely. They really can.
So I guess, what are some factors that might influence how our bodies handle starch?
Well, genetics play a role.
Okay.
And then there's our gut microbiome.
Gut microbiome, I've heard of that.
That fascinating community of microorganisms that reside in our digestive tracts.
So we each have our own internal ecosystem that influences how we process food.
Precisely.
Wow.
And then there are those lifestyle factors. Activity levels, sleep patterns, stress levels, all of which can impact, well, our metabolic health and how efficiently we handle glucose.
So this is painting a much more holistic picture of health, where everything's interconnected.
Exactly.
It's not just about the food on our plates. It's about our whole lives.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's not about isolating one nutrient or food group. It's about understanding that intricate web of factors that contribute to our overall well-being.
So how can we tap into this personalized approach? Where do we even begin?
Well, paying attention to how different foods make you feel is a great starting point. Notice your energy levels after meals, any digestive discomforts, or, well, even changes in mood.
So it's about becoming attuned to our body's signals.
Yes, listening to what they're trying to tell us.
Okay.
And if you're really curious, you could consider keeping a food journal or, even tracking your blood sugar levels to gain some more objective data.
So this is where that concept of bioindividuality really shines through. It's recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition.
Right. What works for your best friend or that celebrity influencer you follow might not be the best fit for you.
Right. Embracing this understanding can empower us to make choices that truly support our unique needs and goals. It's about taking ownership of our health journey.
Yeah. This has been such an eye-opening exploration of starch and really its implications for our health. We've gone from that molecular level to this broader context of lifestyle and bio-individuality.
Yeah. And I think the key takeaway here is that knowledge is power. The more we understand about how our bodies interact with the foods we consume, well, the better equipped we are to make choices that support our long-term health and well-being.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to continue this journey of discovery. Question those food labels, experiment with those different food combinations, and really tune into your body's unique responses.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every small step we take towards a more mindful and informed approach to nutrition is, well, it's a step in the right direction. This deep dive has definitely left me feeling, I don't know, inspired and empowered to take charge of my own health. And I hope our listeners feel the same way.
I hope so too. That's what we strive for here on the deep dive, to spark curiosity, ignite those conversations, and equip our audience with the knowledge they need to make informed choices.
Well, thank you for joining us on this fascinating exploration of starch. And remember, there's always more to uncover, more to learn, and, well, more to discuss.
Exactly. Until next time, stay curious and keep diving deep.
And remember, the most important ingredient in any health journey is, well, your own intuition and the willingness to listen to your body's wisdom.